Claude Code has completely changed the way we're building AI automation. And I genuinely believe that agent teams in 2026 is going to explode. We're talking about spinning up full AI agents that are working in parallel, each one with its own context window, communicating directly with each other, coordinating like a real team, and doing different tasks. And in case we haven't met, my name is Joe. I'm an ex-senior manager in big tech. I scaled my AI agency to 6 figures, helping more than 50 businesses transition to AI. So with that aside, get comfortable and let's dive straight in. So the first thing we're going to explain is what actually is the difference between what we call default mode, sub-agent, and agent teams, right? So for the default mode, this is exactly how it looks like. This is the terminal. We're gonna be using also the terminal, but you can also do it in the UI. The concept doesn't change. But so this is one Claude instance, and interacting in default mode means that everything that we do, so the chat and everything, happens within the same context window. So this exactly means that this single agent, let's call it this Claude instance, will have all of the context. Let's see this in practice. So I just created a new folder in anti-gravity. I opened Claude Code, and we said that because we need to also launch agent teams that are only available in the terminal, let me start using this so that we can get familiar with this type of interface, right? So this is just the UI and this is the terminal stuff. It does not change anything. Basically, what we have is simply that this part right here, which is our bar, is the same as this one right here, right? And we have initialized it with Claude. So there is no difference than that. So let me ask something super simple, and then I'm gonna show you also with the context, what are the implications. Hey, I'm running a demo where I'm explaining the difference between default mode, sub-agents, and agent teams. So can you please just create a super simple SOP, no question asked about any e-commerce. I'm just gonna use it as a reference. So just something very, very simple. So I'm just gonna press this, right? And I am gonna press enter. And now we will see that Claude Code will start thinking and will produce the thing. Actually, let me specify. Please, the output is in a markdown format that you can add to our folder. And I'm gonna press 2. Perfect. Done. So we now have that we have the SOP, right? And everything is produced. Now let me just remove this. I'm gonna run a command, which is /context, right? So here, context. And why is this useful? Because we mentioned that our context will stay within the same window. And this is exactly what I want to show you. So in this context, our messages, which is exactly what we're going to focus on, just have 681 tokens, which just mean basically words. This is a simplification, but you can just think that a token is a word. In reality, it's 3-4 letters, but that's just it complicates things too much. So just think a word, right? And we have that now it's 0.3%. So now we understand what is the default mode, but then we mention here that we have also sub-agents. And what are sub-agents? Basically, sub-agents means nothing more than we opened another Claude instance, and in that Claude instance, we are just doing another task, right? And what is the advantage? That the advantage is that overall, only the result of the task will be fed into the main agent, with nothing is more than the agent that you open first, right? But the context is not there, right? It will stay separate. And this is super important, right? Because we know that if we were to look at performance and context, right? We have a graph like this. So we know that, let's imagine that this is our performance and this is our context that we said that we can think being the same stuff as the number of tokens that these things have. We know that the performance initially goes up because from no context to a little bit of context, and then slowly it goes very much down the more we have context, right? So having more context is not a good thing necessarily to the agent or to the instance. And that's why having sub-agent is so relevant, right? So let's go back to our Claude Code and let's see what this means. So if I go now here and I say split terminal, I will get exactly another terminal here, and I can actually write again Claude, and then this will initiate another Claude instance. And what I can say is again, hey, I'm running a demo where I'm explaining the difference between default mode, sub-agent, and agent teams. Can you please create another SOP for, I don't know, how to cut my hair and add it to the same Explorer? We're gonna press enter, and now we know that we will get asked one question, that we will enable permissions, and then we are good to go, right? We can already go with a shift tab, we can already go accept edits on, and this should allow our Claude Code to continuously working and eventually to produce the markdown file. Perfect. So now we see that we have that the second SOP is ready and we have that it's this. So let me now close this again and go back here. And what do we notice now? We notice that if I run here the context, right? I know that, and I can see that in here, I have 0.0%, which basically is the context that this whole message took. But in here, if I run it, ideally, I would still have that you have a message of 0.3%, right? Because this context is not here, and this agent doesn't know anything about the context that happened here. It just knows now that there is an haircut SOP. If you run again the context command here, I just want to show you one thing. You get that the messages are 1.5. And why is that? Because if you notice, the new agent will consider also this as part of the context, right? So we now see that our messages here are almost 1 point something K tokens, which is exactly what we showed right here. So if we were now here to run a command like, hey, do you have the context of the agent that produced the haircut SOP? Or are you just getting the markdown output, but you have no context there? Perfect. And here we see that I have zero context about a haircut SOP that was likely created in a different conversation or by a different agent, right? So we can clearly see that we all got that only the result got fed into the main agent, but nothing of the context. Okay. So with this in mind, now that we understand the difference between the two, we can go back to our theory and start talking about what agent teams are and how are they different from subagent. Okay, let's now talk about agent teams and how they're different from subagents before we even go practical, right? So disclaimer is you can access agent teams only if you're using the terminal. You can't access it as of the time of the recording of the video inside the UI, right? And that's the reason why we started using the terminal right away. So for us to get a little bit comfortable and familiar with what we are seeing. Now, agent teams are very different because how agent team works is that you spin up initially a team leader, which is, let's call it the main agent, right? And this main agent has the responsibility of creating a task list of things that it needs to do in order to completely finish the task that we prompted. And then it has also the responsibility of spinning up the all the other like teammate, which are other Claude instances, right? Let's now make a practical example so that we can understand what these do before even going into the details. So let's imagine that I am the owner of a club. I am running this club and I have someone that I ask, okay, you take care of the reception and you take care of welcoming the people. Okay, you do drinks and you help people find their own table and you just bring them there, right? Now I have an issue and I have someone that is making, I don't know, a mess at the entrance and I don't have anyone, I don't have security, right? So what am I going to do? What I'm going to do is that as a team leader, I am going to say, hey, you, specifically you are the biggest one out of the group, go to the reception and help them out and do a bit of security job, right? So make sure that no one comes in. So you are this teammate right here is going to stop whatever it's doing, going to the reception, sort out the mess, then come back, and then it's just going to communicate to me the end result, right? So what happens here? What happens here is that as a team leader, I don't have any awareness of what is the road, what happened right here, right? Like, did you fight, did you not fight, and etc. As a team leader, the only thing that I know is that the problem is sorted, right? But this is important because this teammate has a way to communicate with me and I have a way to communicate with the team, right? With the teammate, which was not happening here if we are considering the sub-agent, right? So these two guys were not talking one another. They were just doing different stuff. So we now know that these two guys can talk. And then what else happens? Let's imagine that this guy was having problem with the people at the entrance and needed support. So if this was the second biggest guy in our group, then what this agent, so this agent right here would have done was it would have called this guy, and this guy then would have rightfully come and support. And then if this were to happen, but then this communication happened right here, once again, I don't have any awareness as a team lead that this actually happened, so that the second guy came. I only know that the situation is solved, right? So what does it mean? It means that, to make it very clear now with the Claude Code example, each agent lives in its own instance, meaning they all have an independent context. But what can happen when we talk about agent teams is that one agent can communicate with another one, and they can swap each other messages and help each other. So when someone gets stuck, it can ask support. What happens? It happens also that the agent, this one, so the teammate agent, has a way to communicate to the main agent and vice versa. And that's the reason why you will see that these arrows are double pointed, right? And then the team leader can continuously give feedback to the sub-agent up until we are satisfied with the output. And then the team leader says, okay, the first task is completed, so tac, we can move to the second one, and etc. As you can clearly understand also, we will have that each teammate has an individual task that they are working, right? Now, Anthropic made it in a way that we also don't have the inconvenience of having two agents picking up the same task, right? So this is already taken care of. So with this in mind, now there is a big disclaimer here. So as of now, and because of the fact that they can communicate one another, but only, let's say, the result, right, flow to the agent, we have that the token consumption that there is between this sub-agents and the agent teams is very different. So just to give you some examples, here we're talking with an agent team of people or 3 teammates, that the token consumption is 3 to 5 times higher, right? And the reason is because we not only have the single instances that have their own context, we have also the cross messages, so the communication between one another, and we also have the communication with the main team lead. So for this very reason, and considering that this is also giving guidance and coordinating everything, token consumption is a lot higher. What does it mean? Disclaimer is, use sub-agent only for specific things, because as of the recording of the video, I meant agent teams. As of the recording of the video, agent teams are rather expensive. So let's now see in practice how we can spin up a team of agents. All right, so going into our Claude Code documentation, you can see that this is the URL in case you wanted. You can just write Claude Code docs, agent teams. We see that the first thing that we have to do, agent teams are experimental and disabled by default. You need to enable them by adding Claude Code experimental agent to your settings, to your environment, and agent team have no limitation, etc. So what we're gonna do as a first step is to open a new terminal, right? And initiate it with Claude. And then we're gonna say something along the way of, can you please initialize agent teams in the setting configs, please, for me? Instructions are here. And then in here, we're gonna press simply the documentation. What's gonna happen is that, as we saw before, this is just preparing the settings.json that we saw, and then we can paste the command that they are recommending. Perfect. So as you saw, it just made everything on its own and added this command, which if we go back to the documentation, we see that actually it's something that we should have pasted inside, which basically meant that to enable them, we should have just put in the env environment, Claude Code experimental agents teams to 1. And we saw that right here, this actually already happened, right? Cool. Now, what we need to do is basically, and Claude tells us exactly what we need to do, is we need to say, create an agent team with then a description, right? So now I will prepare a simple prompt to build something very simple, and then we're gonna review it together. So this is the prompt we're going to be using. So create an agent team that builds a personal finance dashboard. One takes the user's income and expenses data, manually inputted from a CSV. One categorizes each transaction automatically, and etc., etc., etc. Right? So you're going to see it, and then we're going to be like, hey, please add also dummy data so that I can already see the dashboard working. Perfect. So initially, as usual, it created the plan, and we can clearly see that now we have a teammate, we have a role, and we have an output, right? So we have that right now we have 4 teammates. So the data agent, the categorizer, the analyst, and the dashboard builder. And we see that right here, it started, going through the plan. And once we accepted, then simply now it started working on the whole thing. Okay, so as you can see right here, we now have all of the agents. So we have the team lead, we have the analyst, and if we press shift and the arrow, we can move through them. So the analyst, the categorizer, the dashboard builder, the data agent, and everything else, right? So then we can hide. And then we also see that slowly here, everything it's mentioned. So we are using 25.2K tokens, 6 tool used. So this ran for 30 seconds before checking the status again. So we can clearly see what each and every one of the agent is doing, and we can also go back to the main, agent and check what is the status. So now, just because I want you to see what is the impact in terms of tokens and cost and consumption and etc., let me just copy this initial prompt and give it to a regular Claude instance. So we just go back to our terminal, we clear, we close one of the two because it's totally fine. We press /clear, and this should clear the conversation history, and we are just gonna paste this and press enter, and this literally pasted the prompt that we created before, so the one that the agent team is currently working on. And what I want you to see is, first of all, the result between the two apps, but then what I'm more interested in is for you to see also what is the impact in terms of context and token consumption that the two things had. Perfect. So now they both ran, and let's see the results. So this is the one that was produced using the regular sub-agents. So this is the outcome. So I would say overall pretty nice. I also really like these cumulative things with the dummy values and like this. So pretty static, I would say. Very clean. You can move and change. I think this is very nice. And dark mode, I also like it. Oh, this is actually something that I really, really enjoy. Transaction. Wow, this is fantastic. So actually very, very impressed. And you can actually add. So let's call it chow, amount 20, expense, auto detect. Oh, and you can actually add it. So extremely, extremely nice. And now let's see the one that was produced by the agent teams. Okay, so immediately I can see that this has also these buttons that pop up and down. So, okay, this is very nice. Now here you can hover. I think I like more the visuals here, but I think the other dashboard, to be completely honest, is much more complete because it had also all of the other tabs that here in this one we don't have. We don't have the chance of adding stuff. So one shot, I think sub-agents were much better. Very simple task where we could have not like appreciated to the full extent what is the real difference in terms of outcome from sub-agents and agent teams. But when should you use which? Well, here Claude offers a very clear distinction. So this is taken from the official documentation. So for sub-agent, we tend to use them for focused and independent tasks, while agent teams, we tend to prefer them for complex and collaborative work. For example, agent design for a full website and etc., having each individual agent that can communicate one another will help us create a much better design overall. And the reason why this one was not satisfactory is simply because in the prompt was very simple. I asked to make it easy so that I didn't spend more than 5 minutes waiting for the output. Now, where communication is important, let's not forget that agent teams can communicate while sub-agents cannot. And overall, I would say that you anyway need to be extremely cautious because in terms of token consumption from sub-agents to the agent teams, we have that roughly we are increasing of 5x the amount of tokens that we consume per single execution of the tasks. So now you have a very clear understanding of when you should use the sub-agents versus when you should use the agent teams, and you also know how to spin them up. So with that being said, if you are now interested in using this knowledge in order to make money with it and you are a 9-to-5er, please check the first link down below. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm pretty sure you're gonna love this video right here.